All right, let's unpack the really complex and frankly dangerous strategy behind Iran's recent military moves. You see, this is a conflict that doesn't seem to follow the usual rules, because Iran isn't actually trying to win in the way we normally think about war. So what are they trying to do? Let's get into it.
Yeah, this is really the whole puzzle right here. I mean, think about it. If you know you can't go toe-to-toe with your enemy in a straight-up fight and come out on top, what do? Well, Iran's answer is pretty wild. You don't try to win the war, you just change the definition of winning itself.
And that leads us right to their core strategy, and it's all about making the enemy pay. This isn't about capturing territory or getting a surrender. No, it's about something way more basic: survival. And the plan is to make this whole conflict so painful, so expensive, that their opponents just can't afford to keep it going.
So here's the thing you've got to understand. For Iran, a win just means surviving this thing while they bleed the US and Israel dry, draining their weapons, their money, and maybe most importantly, their political will to fight. They don't have to win. They just have to make it too costly for the other side to continue.
And what's so clever, or so dangerous about this is how it targets each enemy differently. For the United States, the weak spot is economic. Think about oil prices suddenly skyrocketing, or the Pentagon having to pull ships and planes away from, say, the Pacific. But for Israel, it's different. They see this as a fight for their very existence, so they're willing to sacrifice more. But even their resources have a limit, especially if new fronts keep opening up.
So, how do they actually turn up the pressure? Well, let's start with their first big move: threatening to choke the Strait of Hormuz. We're talking about one of the most critical choke points on the planet for the world's oil supply. Iran's goal is to make passing through it so risky that it could literally spark a global economic crisis.
And how do they plan to do that? Well, it comes down to one number: 6,000. That's the estimated number of sea mines Iran has ready to go. This isn't just some vague threat. It's the very real ability to turn one of the world's busiest shipping lanes into a giant, deadly minefield.
And it's not just about the sheer number of mines. Look at the variety they have. You've got your classic, old-school contact mines. Cheap, effective, perfect for hitting a big, slow oil tanker. But then you get into the really scary stuff. Influence mines that just sit on the seabed, silently waiting for the specific sound or magnetic signature of a modern warship to pass overhead. They've even got drift mines, which are basically psychological warfare, just floating randomly, causing chaos. And of course, limpet mines for special ops divers to attach to a specific ship.
Now, what makes all this so incredibly hard to stop is how they get these mines in the water. They're not using some big, obvious naval vessel you can track with a satellite. Nope, they're using swarms of small, fast boats, stealthy underwater drones, even a whole fleet of mini submarines. These things are designed to be sneaky, making it almost impossible to catch them in the act.
And right here, this is the whole game. This is the asymmetric advantage. Look at this. Iran can lay hundreds of mines in a short amount of time, probably overnight. But clearing them? Oh, that is a slow, methodical, and incredibly dangerous job that takes weeks, maybe even months. It requires specialized ships that are themselves juicy targets. It is just so much easier to cause the problem than it is to fix it.
And the risk is so real that major global powers are already backing off. I mean, look at France. They actually pulled their flagship, the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, out of a mission in the area. And the reason was simple: the security conditions are not met. When a world power basically says, nope, it's too risky for our best ship, that tells you everything you need to know about how effective this threat is.
But this strategy doesn't stop at the water's edge. The next big escalation happens when Iran activates its most powerful ally in the region, Hezbollah. And just like that, a brand new, very dangerous second front opens up for Israel on its northern border.
And check this out. Their entry into the fight wasn't just random. It was a seriously sophisticated, coordinated attack. Here's how it went down. First, Hezbollah unleashes a massive barrage of over 100 rockets. This forces Israel's Iron Dome air defense system to light up and focus all its attention on stopping that barrage. And right in that moment, with the shield occupied, in come the Iranian ballistic missiles, striking their targets. That's a whole new level of teamwork.
And don't think for a second that they're a spent force. Just look at what they still have in the tank. They're estimated to have something like 25,000 rockets and missiles left, plus 1,000 drones. And look at the manpower. 50,000 active fighters, with another 30,000 in reserve. This is a serious, formidable army.
And at the tip of that spear are their elite special forces, the RAD-1 unit. We're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 of their absolute best soldiers. These guys are hardened veterans from the war in Syria. They're experts in night fighting, and they're lethally good with advanced anti-tank missiles, which makes them an absolute nightmare for any ground troops.
So we have the threat at sea, and we have a second front in the north. And now, this is where things really start to spin out of control. The battlefield isn't contained anymore. It's spreading, pulling in new players, and creating chaos all over the region.
I mean, it's just one thing after another. We've seen direct Iranian attacks on oil tankers, then, and this was a huge shock, a strike on oil facilities in Oman, a country that's normally neutral and was actually trying to mediate peace. In response, retaliatory strikes are now hitting targets inside Tehran, and it's even gotten to the point where the FBI is putting out warnings about ghost ships, regular-looking cargo ships that could be used to launch drone attacks right off the US coast.
And those strikes inside Iran are a really big deal, especially the one that took out the national leader of the Basij militia. You have to understand, the Basij is this massive, 500,000-strong paramilitary force. They're the regime's muscle on the streets, used to crush protests and maintain control. Hitting their top leadership brings this war home to the regime in a very personal way.
And all this chaos is creating fallout in completely different ways. On the military side, it's pretty much the end of an era. We're getting reports that the last of Iran's famous F-14 Tomcat jets, which they've miraculously kept flying for 50 years, have finally been destroyed. At the same time, on the diplomatic front, the pressure is causing international relationships to splinter, with countries like Spain now pulling their ambassador from Israel. The cracks are starting to show everywhere.
So, that's where we are now. And it all leads to the one final question that really matters. With this asymmetric strategy constantly evolving, pulling in new fighters, opening new fronts, and using tactics no one saw coming, can any of this actually be contained? Or are we just watching the very beginning of a much larger, much more dangerous war?